The Airbus A380, the largest passenger aircraft ever built, was set to have a major impact on the market when it first entered service. With a capacity for over 500 passengers spread across 2 passenger decks, there was little doubt that this jet would soon become a key element of long-haul fleet strategies for major airlines across the globe. The incredibly capable aircraft racked up orders from the largest airlines, mostly those operating out of major hubs that needed additional capacity. Legacy network carriers like Air France, Lufthansa and British Airways were quick to order the aircraft, and they planned lavish first and business class cabins for the new jet. It helped greatly that these airlines specifically were supporting their own national aviation industries, as the A380's major components came from France, Germany and the UK. Nonetheless, the Super Jumbo allowed airlines to quickly expand capacity on key routes where they had limited gate slots. By the mid-2010s, the Airbus A380 was commonly featured on routes from the United States, Asia and the Middle East to major European hub airports like London Heathrow, Paris Charles de Gaulle and Frankfurt. However, while British Airways and Lufthansa continue to fly the A380, Air France's double-deckers are long gone. Why is this? We take a look for today's video. While airlines like Emirates have pretty much always loved the A380, it had become a major liability once the COVID-19 pandemic came around and global air travel came grinding to a halt. This prompted many airlines to change their outlook on the Super Jumbo. The aircraft had increasingly become difficult, if not impossible, to fill during travel restrictions, and the aircraft's operating economics proved exceptionally weak when its seats could not be filled. Some airlines even resorted to drastic measures, with some deciding the costs of operating a fleet of Airbus A380 jets to simply not be worth it. The aircraft comes along with massive operational costs, including maintenance on 4 massive engines. Essentially, all A380 operators parked their Super Jumbos during the pandemic. Some were extremely confident that the jet would return one day. Others took a more cautious approach, placing their jets in long-term storage but never making definitive statements on the fate of their A380 fleets. Others retired the jet and never looked back. Air France was one such airline. But where did it all begin with Air France and the A380? Well, Air France's decision to order the jet originates from a few key strategic plans that the carrier was aiming to pursue. For starters, the French flag carrier increasingly began to face capacity constraints at its principal hub at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The carrier's decision was also motivated by additional factors, including a need to reduce per-seat operating costs on the busiest routes, with national pride and political considerations also playing a role in choosing to order the double-decker. After all, how embarrassing would it have been for Airbus if Air France did not order the assembled in Toulouse aircraft? Airbus is a major European manufacturer, one which has significant operations in France. Thus, purchasing the Airbus A380 was an important political move. If the national airline of France had not ordered the most ambitious plane ever produced in France, alongside the Concorde possibly, it would certainly have raised some eyebrows. While the airline's intentions in ordering the jet may be debatable, the carrier did ultimately place an order for 10 at the 2001 Paris Air Show, with the first model entering the French carrier's fleet in 2009. Used for expanding capacity out of its Paris hub, Air France equipped the type with 538 seats, making it the highest capacity aircraft ever to join the airline. The addition of the type quickly allowed the carrier to expand capacity on key routes, such as Paris to New York JFK. The A380 was intended to reduce per-seat operating costs significantly, with Air France stating that this metric would be reduced by 20% in comparison to older generation aircraft like the Boeing 777-200 and the Airbus A340-300. The airline estimated that operating the A380 would save the carrier over $100 million per year, a proposition that seemed attractive in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis and the post-September 11th decline in air travel demand. The aircraft's GP7200 engines, which did come along with higher maintenance costs, were marketed by Airbus as some of the most efficient on the market at the time. While flexibility may have suffered, the aircraft's per-passenger fuel consumption was significantly lower compared to operating two smaller aircraft on a route. The aircraft seemed to offer strong financial benefits while also aligning with the airline's long-term sustainability goals and the French government's support for Airbus. But with more than a decade passing since Air France's order placement, the aviation landscape had changed drastically. In the early 2010s, with the introduction of the Boeing 787, airlines would be able to operate new kinds of routes. These jets offered not just lower capacity than most traditional ultra-long-range jets, but also game-changing fuel efficiency. This led to a sharp increase in point-to-point long-haul travel and the disruption of the hub-and-spoke model of operations. These structural shifts in global air travel markets removed capacity from many high-demand routes between connecting hubs, meaning that airlines like Air France saw weaker load factors on many of the flights on which they decided to place the Airbus A380. As a result, the airline's A380s were flying with extremely weak load factors, incentivizing the carrier to retire the jet. The A380 would have remained in service for just a few years longer had the COVID-19 pandemic not shut down global air travel. However, the jet's retirement timeline was accelerated due to the health crisis. Air France's 10 A380s were slated for retirement in 2022, but were retired early as a result of the pandemic. Half of the airline's fleet was already on the road towards retirement in 2020, and these jets were quickly moved into long-term storage. The other half of the A380 fleet was initially slated for cabin upgrades, but this refurbishment was cancelled when the airline decided to retire the double-deckers early. The final Air France Airbus A380 service took place on June 26, 2020. Since the aircraft's retirement, some jets have been stored at different facilities, mostly with the intention of potentially selling them to a different buyer. The carrier has never really demonstrated any intention of reactivating its Airbus A380 fleet in the same way Lufthansa, Qatar Airways and Etihad have done. Some airframes have even been dismantled already, with work taking place in Ireland and Spain. At the time of making this video, 5 of 10 airframes are listed as scrapped or partially scrapped. The other 5 are all listed as being in long-term storage at Tarbes-Lourdes-Pyrénées Airport. To this day, Air France has not ever expressed regret over retiring its A380 fleet. Well, as far as we know. This seems to be the case even as airlines these days have been facing capacity issues due to slower than expected deliveries of new aircraft. But what do you think of Air France's decision to retire the A380? Was it done prematurely? Was it an extremely smart move? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.